Welcome back, everyone. For those who are following along on our series, we're talking a lot about AI. We've had conversations, Paul Moore, our technical coach, about the impact of AI for developers, about spec-driven development, review-driven development, especially BDD has become very popular and how people are using BDD to help with requirements. I've made some commentary about what this change looks like as a leader and the impact. Larry and I have had conversations that you probably have been seeing as well, but this one in particular, we wanted to dig in a little bit deeper about what does this look like for management and leadership. For those who don't know Larry from the previous videos, Larry is a certified team coach. Larry has years of coaching experience as well as being in the trenches as a Scrum Master. But I think most importantly, Larry has a real passion around AI, especially in big thinking, what this means at a higher level. And he came across some really good ideas he's going to be demoing for us. So stick around to watch the demo. So I think you're going to like what he sees, and he's willing to make those prompts available for you to try out as well. So Larry, the thing that's been on my mind that I'm watching as we're working with some of these leaders is almost like this inability to move forward. Like they all want AI. They don't know how to move forward with AI. And there's a bit of that analysis paralysis. So they might say, everyone, we want you to try AI or use AI. Everyone, you now have Copilot licenses or you have Claude licenses. And yet I wouldn't say the leaders are necessarily leading the way. So what's your thoughts on that? What have you been thinking or what have you seen around that?
It's the classic thing. You got to eat your own dog food, right? And I'll bet this happens a lot. You're asking the resources in your companies to come up with their own idea about how to use it. Okay, fine. But how about if you use it? And then the question is, well, I'm kind of busy. I don't know how to use it. Well, you are exactly where everybody else is. So I've built a strategic scenario here that I think would help get you started in thinking about how you could use AI at a higher level, at the CEO level, the CTO level, or vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and below. The thing is, strategic thinking is what you're getting paid to do, right? You're guiding the company. You're kind of looking over the horizon. And normally when we look over the horizon, we get an expensive consulting company, and nothing against expensive consulting companies. Please go right ahead. But they're going to come in with their playbooks, and they're going to give you a generic view of the horizon. But what you're really getting paid to do, and where I think CEOs really stand out, is the ones that can have the ability to strike their own path. It's safe to follow what a consultant wants to tell you, and you've got somebody to blame in case it fails. We all know that.
That's true. So there's a couple of things that come to my mind, and then let's jump in because I'm really eager to see what you have as well. So number one, I was mentioning before, I just encourage anyone that's listening to this, just have a bias to action. The learning is in the doing. So just try something. And Larry, you and I have both used this in our personal lives. I've used it like to set goals. I've used it to ask for advice on my kids. And to your point, even yesterday, I was sitting down to look at Q2 and how to prioritize, because just like anyone listening here who's either in the product space or management space, there's more work than you can do, right? There's never a shortage of work you can do. So the challenge has always been priorities. How do you prioritize? And I was getting ready to wrestle through this, and I realized I already have a prompt that knows me from previous prompts. I've saved those, and I even set up system instructions that I can change between. So in this case, I went back to my system instruction that says, you are a consultant to my specific niche firm, right? For small businesses in this consulting space, et cetera. But then this time I added in the Ikigai that I know that Vic's really big on, which is a bit like Strength Finders as well. I said, here's my Strength Finders results. Here's my Myers-Briggs. And I listed each of you on the team and what your strengths are, and then said, okay, now here's all the current things that are on my mind that I think we should be doing. And just like anyone listening, I'm with you. We're trying to do a little bit of all of them and not getting any one thing done. So help me prioritize. And I also told it, don't be nice, don't flatter me, be blunt. And boy, it came back and said, it's obvious what you should do. It says, you're having a failure to delegate, number one. And it said, if this can't work the way I'm describing, you've got bigger problems. And then it said, here's the other two to follow. It said, those are longer plays. You're in a pivot situation. One of these is obviously immediate. And then these last couple, you should just wait and revisit those later. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but what it did, I fed all this in. I set it up, maybe took an hour. I thought it's going to crank. I put it in deep research mode. I'm about to get up and go get coffee, right? And it's already done. Now, my point is it perfect? No, but the 80-20 rule, it's better to take action now and then inspect and adapt, right? That agile mindset doesn't change. So do something, inspect and adapt. Well, now I need to have clear marching orders for when I sit down today to do something instead of getting stuck in that Well, let's have another meeting. Let's revisit that. Maybe if I thought about it some more, let me get those consultants. And add this one point to your consultants. I know you're being nice about it. And we've worked alongside, I think, all those big consultants and all of our time out there in the trenches leading change as well. My friends, you can just look at this. If the consultants are really like the best choice to go, why weren't they starting these conversations 2 years ago? Because what you'll see is they reacted because it makes business sense, but they weren't necessarily in front of all this talking and letting people know. I can point you to smaller consultants that were talking about this years before ChatGPT really hit it big. So to Larry's point, it's not that they're bad. As some people say, it's a guaranteed C. But I've also heard a good friend that has to work with them all the time in his field. He says, you got to consider that all the consultant is doing is asking to borrow your watch to tell you the time. So they're going to come in, they're going to ask the same questions that you could ask AI yourself, and they're going to give a response that, again, might not be bad and you can act on it, but you could have gotten that yourself. You could have gotten it in 1 minute, like I did, and you could have gotten it for free. And now you can use that money for additional resources, additional tools, because there's a lot of tools out. Think we can do with that budget. So my encouragement is do something, inspect and adapt. Take a bite, see what you get, and then find out and then iterate back to it. In fact, I've heard multiple times that the state of AI right now is essentially eliminating the need for those big consultants because it's got the strategic ability, it's got all the knowledge already. They're just repackaging it, same information, but it's going to take you longer and cost you a lot more. Larry's going to give us a chance to actually walk through some of that. Any comments or thoughts on that, Larry, before you dive in?
Yeah. Scott, I was trying to be kind, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the big consulting companies because a lot of times they're being used as punch bags. But on the other hand, as a CEO, your board of directors looks to you for direction. It's up to you to find out where the company is supposed to be headed. And I believe, especially after this demo, that AI can assist you in starting a conversation about that path. We've created a scenario here based on international trade relationships, but I've geared it toward the corporation to help you contextualize how that might look for your company.
Let's dive in.
So here's the scenario. You're a CEO of a large company, and we're going to call this company EU Inc. It's a very large company. You've got several subsidiaries. You've got all kinds of strengths, all kinds of things going on. And you're not doing too bad, actually. You're one of the larger players in the international market. Great. But the problem is you lost one of your major clients. And that was America Incorporated, decided to go by themselves. They canceled the contracts. They pulled their people. And the board of directors is on your case asking you, what are you going to do about this? And you've met with your VPs and you don't really have an answer. So what are you going to do? Let's look over the horizon, because my feeling for EU Inc. is I'll bet in the midst of this, where we're looking at tragedy, I'll bet there's promise. So in this scenario, you're the CEO of EU Inc. You're playing golf with the CEO of Canada Incorporated, and he brings up something. Mark Carney brings up this interesting thing about, hey, I just joined a trade alliance. It's called the CPTPP. It's the Trans-Pacific Partnership, where basically all of Asia gets on the same page as to what kind of trade relationships do we want. And then automatically you're thinking, hey, maybe we could see if Asia could take some of the pressure off the loss of those massive American contracts. So how could I do this? Well, let's turn to our AI agents to find out. For this demo, I'm going to use a French model called Minstrel or Le Chat. And this is what I would encourage you to do, and we'll make these prompts available. Just as an example, you layer on your logic, especially when you're trying to do strategic thinking. I find it best not to give AI too much information up front, because what you're doing is you're building your logic into the AI's logic. You don't want to get AI take on a certain thing necessarily. You want them to help you dig deeper into your own thinking.
Yep.
And so take it a step at a time. So first of all, we started off with what is a CPTPP trade alliance? The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, often mentions transatlantic trading partnership, and he hopes the EU will join. So he's actually telling you on the golf course, I think there's an opportunity here for you guys. So I wanted to know, what is the real name of this and what in the world is it? So let's take a look. So we get it. It's a Trans-Pacific Transatlantic Trading Partnership, and it's advocating for No, this I didn't know from the first one.
That's
Sorry.
fine.
Sometimes referred to the mega anti-Trump trade alliance.
No. Oh, wow. Well,
Okay.
everybody, this isn't
Mr.
us. This is just Mistral.
Claude had a different take on it.
Yeah, I bet it did.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you Claude's take on this. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
But this is great. This is exactly what, like, well, each AI's got their flavor. Now you can see it.
So the goal is to strengthen supply chains, unlock opportunities, reinforce rules-based trading system. And I dug into what that means in the face of rising protectionism. The chat here is just a little bit more brutal, but that's just how it is. Claude says its members are Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Chile, Peru, Brunei. Already as a CEO, you're thinking, wow, those are good markets.
Yeah.
And collectively account for approximately, get ready for this, 13.5% of global GDP. They constitute a diverse economic community. Now, that's what you want, right? In the times of uncertainty, diversity is not bad. So you have more options, is what I'm getting from this. So a lot of options for various levels of economic engagement. So the world's most technological, sophisticated economies, it gives me a key or a step into the emerging markets. I have to be honest about my corporation here, Scott, for a moment. We are a little bit slow, and sometimes it takes maybe 20 years for us to do something. But right now, we're in a hurry.
Boy.
And we've been talking about diverse markets for years.
Yes. By the way, this is a perfect setup because companies have ideas about what might be important to change, but they're just ongoing conversations. Like at one company that we both know, they say, yeah, if we're trying to make these bigger decisions, we're going to have a meeting to decide who should be in the meeting to decide. I mean, and it just never happens. Now, you can get guidance here, but the thing I really love is you're getting real data. And if we can move towards real data-driven decisions, I think it's helpful. So this is getting real stats, real data. And for those who might say, well, is the model out of data? You can always set up AI to do grounded research and pull in real data. In particular, I like Google Notebook because I can tell it to find the sources, filter through the sources. I'm not necessarily reading them all, but I can quickly have 40 or 60 sources and then say, based on all this, go ahead and do all this analysis. And I look at what you have here. I had no idea how significant this is. This gives you all the data. So already what you've done is you've got the initial research that you might have to pay a consultant to go out and get and wait however many weeks or maybe months to actually get back just to have something, and you got it in an instant.
Yes, and look at this. The combined total is approximately $38.5 trillion. Now, to put that in perspective, the US GDP is roughly 29 to 30 trillion. This partnership would be the largest economic bloc in the world by a significant margin. That's kind of what Minstrel was trying to say, but he put it in his little
European flavor.
He had that little French bite to it. Right? It's larger than the United States and China combined. So already as the CEO of EU Inc., I see a silver lining in this thing. We lost our biggest client, BMW, Mercedes, not even to mention the EU farmers in Poland and our agricultural division, our automotive division. They're all on the phone with me going, do something about this. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to see some hope here. And that was just one prompt. I tell you what, I'll walk you through what Minstrel did because I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, so let's go through what Minstrel came up with. I love that you compared the two as well.
Yeah, list of specific benefits the EU would bring to this EU CPTPP partnership. Examples may be automotive, manufacturing, defense, and so on. Okay, good. Let's go down here and let's get into our divisions.
And again, for those who are watching and they're scrolling a lot, just check the links in the video to actually get the prompts that Larry used for this. So don't worry about missing some of this because you'll be able to go through everything that Larry's showing you.
Yeah, so here we talk about the promise here, the combined total. That's kind of introduction. Let's go division by division now through EU Inc. So EU Inc. has a lot of divisions. One of them is their advanced manufacturing division. So the European Union is home to the world's most sophisticated cluster of advanced manufacturing industries. And I have to say that that's true.
Yes.
The Germans really embraced robotization. Tesla adapted something similar, but they were going at it for quite a long time. It's one of the first factories they opened in East Germany, as far as I know. It was heavily automated. So Germany alone counts for a disproportionate share of global exports in machinery. A lot of these machine companies are actually small, mid-sized companies. So machinery, automotive, chemical engineering. It is not merely an export industry, but the locus of some of the most consequential technical transactions currently underway, including a shift to electric vehicles, hydrogen propulsion, and advanced driver assistance. Now, you don't hear that a lot from the Europeans because EU Inc. is not really big on PR.
I wanted to highlight that bold sentence there at the end. Now you've got others that are parts providers on your supply chain in Vietnam and Malaysia. Just that efficiency gains across that whole network, because we've all agreed we're not going to have this need. There's no more non-tariff barriers getting in the way, right?
Yes.
That's all that additional work and overhead and cost. And I love the idea of it goes not just through these facts like you're reading, it's giving you a summation as well. So for some of you who are like getting some of this research, or maybe you're running through it, you can also ask it like to just simplify or give you the bullet points. You could take all this as an outline, save it, so you have your like full dossier that want to read through if you're going to inform the board or whatever. But if you just want to get a summary of that for yourself, like give me the bullet points really quick, Minstrel or Claude, it can do that as well. I do the same when I'm reviewing legal documents. I'll scan them, but if it's a known partner or trusted situation, I'll still just say, summarize this in just 3 points or to a paragraph, because I'm not always the most detail oriented. I'm more like, hey, let's do something. Some of you listening might be, boy, this seems like it's great, but this is a lot to read through. Well, then ask it to summarize it.
Yes.
For those obviously don't know Larry, perhaps as well as I do, Larry is a deep thinker. So Larry can go through all this and he can stay in intake mode for lots and lots of data, where some of you, you get bored on the second slide of a PowerPoint, there's a paragraph, right? Let's be honest. So do this with AI. Say, just give it to me. Pretend like you have a new intern who's got a PhD. And anyone who's worked with some of these folks in the R&D areas, you'll ask a question. So tell me about this technology. And you got to sit back for an hour-long presentation because they're so excited, right? And you're like, just land the plane, give me the bullet points. So you can do that with AI. I think that's really important. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed as Larry goes through it.
Yeah,
so
this is a good point. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing it up, Scott. That's very good, because actually I highlighted the bottom line to each one of these divisions here. And so as a CEO, you go, okay, we're going to get some efficiency gains across the integrated production network. That's not a bad idea. See, efficiency gains, because what is one of the first things I have to do as a CEO when I have to downsize? Well, we're thinking of efficiency. How can we make our company more efficient? So what you do is, of course, you combine divisions and do whatever, lay a bunch of people off, you restructure. This alliance would help me generate efficiency gains across integrated production network. And this is incredible. Well, let's take a look at our aerospace and defense division. Again, I'll just walk you through this. Here, the bottom line to this is we could yield both cost savings and capability improvements.
Great.
So there we go. We've got 2 points here. We got efficiency gains. We've got cost savings, capability improvements.
Yep.
You probably know Europe does have a fairly mature defense industry that goes back 1,000 years or more. They're actually quite competitive. This is what we would bring to this partnership. A partnership that includes Japan itself as a major aerospace partner, and then Australia, which is currently engaged in one of the most significant defense procurement programs in history. Procurement programs, bingo. Market for my guys here, market for our division maybe. And Canada's part is now integrated into the European defense industrial capacity, which creates then a trans-hemispheric defense technological ecosystem. This is powerful. And what do we get out of that? So that's what Asia gets out of. That's what the alliance gets out of what EU Inc. can bring to the table. What does EU Inc. get out of it? Well, we get out of the cost savings and capability improvements. And of course, that Australian market is looking real good for some Airbus stuff. And our Gripen jet isn't too bad. No. And of course, the French have their own and so on. So there's potential here. So let's take a look at our financial services and capital markets division. How would that look? Well, as we know, EU Inc. has European banking groups and insurance conglomerates and asset managers collectively manage assets that rival or exceed those of any other regional financial system. And the EU is the world's second most widely used reserve currency. What we bring then to the alliance is this. We deepen pool of available financing for infrastructure development, particularly in the Southeast Asian economies with large unmet investment needs. So there's investment opportunities in Asia that open up to us. Amazing.
And it's finding them, right? It's saying this is something to look for. That's great.
Yeah. And if I wanted to, I could dig deep and they would tell me which ones specifically we could start investing in tomorrow. Now, our capital markets are strong. And of course, the EU Inc. is issuing bonds. The oil bond is getting out of the market and becoming a little more popular. So there's capital there that we can start to invest. And then all of a sudden the question is, okay, great, we got all this money. Where can we put it? Well, here, this alliance answers the question where we can start to invest, because some of these Asian countries are sort of still developing countries, and they have a big need for investment.
Yeah. And one thing just to add, if you're this deep in it with us, you get it, because this would be a space to play. If you're feeling like, yeah, but that's not exactly how we would invest, here's our risk tolerance level, you can always put that in the prompt as well. So for example, when we're working with some product managers, we would have AI generate a lot of ideas based on their market segment, their product line, et cetera, their history, their position in that marketplace. But we put in evaluate these based on risks. And so it could sit there and score the risks in terms of feasibility,
Yes.
scalability, et cetera. So you can shape its feedback, how it's giving you, tailor to your specific situation, rather than a consultant who just doesn't know and shows up and gives something. Just interact with it and tailor it. The other thing is, you might say, oh, these are great, I love these bullet points, gosh, but now I got to summarize this myself to do the presentation to my boss or to the board to show. You don't. You can say, turn this into a presentation, limit each slide to 3 bullet points, et cetera. And it couldn't have done that very well last year. It can do it really well now.
Yes.
You don't have to do all the summation. It's really good at this verbal and working with text. So not only what you're seeing here with Larry, but even now converting that text into slides, and then you can review it. So a lot of my recommendation is do something, take a look. Try to let it do 80% of the research, the data collection,
Yes.
the summation, et cetera, and then see what you get. Because I know this is a lot, but you can have it do the same and turn it into a presentation. You can tailor it.
The bottom line to this one is, and I'm not going to go through all of these because there's a lot of stuff here. As you pointed out, I like all this detail, but not everybody that's watching this video might be as excited about the percentages and the growth and all that as I am. But the bottom line to our financial services and capital markets division is this: our partnerships aggregate financial weight in international monetary institutions, enhancing its collective ability to shape rules of global finance. So not only have I gained some efficiency, not only have I gained an opportunity to build out my supply chains, but now I'm starting to be able to set the rule for finance here. So this gives me more power than I had even before with my old relationship with America Inc. Now, I'm not going to go through all these, like I said before, but from technology, artificial intelligence, and digital governance, there's some really important things here that we could have, for AI Inc. could have some real influence here. If you combine Japan's robotics strength and precision electronics with European expertise in industrial AI, this combination creates some opportunities that now no one corporation in this case could have alone. So we could help Japan create much more intelligent robots, for example, to put bottom line here. So there are opportunities here for biotech, direct economic and public health relevance, and diversified pharmaceutical production with redundant capabilities. Green energy. How about our green energy division? We've had some amazing success with green energy here at EU Inc. A partnership framework would harmonize clean energy standards here. A partnership framework would harmonize clean energy standards, facilitate technology transfer, and accelerate the decarbonization. Then I was thinking, what happens if we put Ukraine in the mix? Right now, despite all the political back and forth, Ukraine will join the EU sooner or later. And so the question is, how do I stay ahead of that development? And what would that look like if they were to join?
I was going to add that last sentence of the first paragraph is a good example where it's giving you clarity, because it's mentioning several points. But that last paragraph under 4, where it says these are not separate questions, they are the same question asked at different levels of analysis. So it's giving you the clarity too, if you're a person going through all this new idea on the strategic level. That's great.
What happens to our EU agricultural market? If we do not join the CPTPP, then we got big problems, because the Polish farmers have already said they're not going to allow Ukrainian wheat to enter the market. And the French farmers are French farmers.
They're up in arms.
So what do? Well, we look at this problem, and this is why I actually ran this, to illustrate something. Right now, if you look at it at face value, this is a huge problem, and Ukraine should just stay out of the EU, or at least they should not be allowed to import their grain. Fine, but there's got to be a story here. We're looking over the horizon, right? Well, if we join the CPTPP and Ukraine joins, guess what happens? The whole narrative changes drastically. The advantage that Ukraine then brings is that all that wheat that we're afraid of, and by the way, it says here that one of the reasons why Ukraine is a superpower is because It has some of the richest soil on the face of the planet.
I never knew
42%.
that.
It has 42% of this so-called black earth. So what are we going to do with this? We're going to be afraid of it? Keep them out of our market? No, let's incorporate this into the CPTPP thing and see what we can do with food hunger. What will it do to feeding the world? Because all of a sudden Europe has got way too much. Argentina, we already know, has way too much. We've already crossed that bridge and had that conversation. So we have huge amounts of food surplus where parts of the world doesn't have. And the CPTPP countries, some of those are net importers of agricultural goods.
Sure.
So now what we have here is a new strategy. I'll just give you a summary of it. The current countries in the EU create their agricultural products are some of the highest quality in the world because of EU regulations. So the quality of EU food is pretty high, some of the highest you can get anywhere. Now, Ukraine hasn't joined the EU, so they're not up to the same standard, but they have bulk. So you take the Ukrainian bulk plus the current EU countries' quality, then you can bring to the CPTPP alliance quality food and lots of food to countries that are looking for food to eat. So we take a tragedy, we take some fear, we take some anger, and we put it in different contexts. And AI helped me find that context very quickly. We find that we have a solution to a much larger problem. And the solution is addressing world hunger. Now that sounds like everybody's been trying to do that, but here we have a plan. We looked over the horizon, we see it can actually be done. By joining this alliance, we directly reduce the systematic risk of supply chains for electric vehicles, defense, electronics, renewable energy infrastructure, and semiconductor manufacturing. So I see here as a CEO of EU Inc. an amazing opportunity. And to some extent, I look at this and I go, I'm kind of glad that America Incorporated canceled our contracts, because if we would have just continued on the way we were, yeah, we could have done this, we could have done all right. But now a whole new world of potential opens up to us. And we haven't restructured anything yet. We haven't reorganized. We haven't laid anybody off. We haven't sold any of our divisions. We haven't, redefined our core values and pulled it in. Instead of contracting as a result of losing these contracts, we have an opportunity to grow and to grow beyond anything that we've been able to achieve until now. So as a CEO here of EU Inc., I see not only promise, but I see a plan, I see a way forward. Now, again, like Scott has said many times here, since you're busy and you've probably got to run off now to a board meeting, you can have whoever you're working with here put this in a very condensed format, and it would do that for you. Just enough to get the board interested, to give you the go-ahead to look deeper into this. You've got a way forward. Instead of succumbing to a bad situation, it gives you opportunities that you didn't really know existed until you start digging around and looking over the horizon. And that's what this is all about. What is over the horizon? Now, I've tried to do this manually a lot. When I worked with nonprofit organizations, I worked really, really hard, did a lot of research. It took me months. One time it took me 3 years to do one project.
Wow.
Okay, it shows you how much I like statistics, right? But if I had AI, I could have had the thing done in probably 2 days.
True.
So this is looking over the horizon. Where are we headed? Well, we know that we have opportunities here that I believe my board of directors are going to be very, very excited about. And of course, here at the end, I get my references so I can look this up and start to give this off to my research team and have them flesh this out a little bit more, and to start crunching the numbers and finding out if what Claude told me here is really true, and we can put some meat behind some of this. And then not only that, but we can work with our AI agent to help us create now a strategy, the tactics behind this. How do we realize this? And it will help you create your roadmap to try.
Those who weren't sure about what AI can do, 'cause I'm sure there's plenty of people who are like, yeah, no, I see how it can summarize the email, or it'll automatically template a reply to an email. Yeah, but just imagine on a much broader scale, and also going out and doing this. So if you weren't sure about its research capability, what Larry's shown is just incredibly detailed, thorough, amazing analysis. It's finding opportunities, it's finding the patterns, it's basing those on really grounded research. You can see the resources here. This is powerful. It reminds me of a story I heard of another leader of a company. He was on a business trip And he realized he's thinking about some of these similar things about strategically what they should do. And he realizes the same thing. I should just throw this into Claude. And he realized he started to get results immediately within that evening, continues that work while at the airport the next day. And by the time he gets back to work, he's got something like this, which is very thorough analysis, great recommendations for next options. He said that easily would have been weeks of working with a consultant. If not more than that, he had it all in less than 2 days at essentially zero cost. The main thing is to begin. And I want to encourage you, like what Larry's showing you, this wasn't the first time that Larry sat down at an AI prompt engine and said, I don't know, let me try this. He's been working with AI for a while. My reason I'm saying that is just try something and get better about the prompts. When I was sharing my story about what I was doing, it literally probably was an hour of trying to get the full prompt set up.
Yeah.
But now it knows the context. So AI has increased so much. If any of you tried this last year, early last year, or the year before, you might have not been so impressed. But the scope, if you can, that classic hockey stick that we all wish our companies would do, the capability of AI has definitely hit a hockey stick earlier this year. It's just unprecedented. I would say Claude led the way in that. So the research is incredible. Its ability to summarize that is really incredible. And its context window and memory has gone way, way up. It doesn't hallucinate nearly as much. I mean, you still want to check and have a human in the loop. Also, most of these different AI tools now have the ability to either save projects so it remembers related information, save it as a custom GPT for yourself if you're on ChatGPT, creating MD files so you really do have local resident memory that you can upload every time and say, remember all this first, and then iterate through that. But back to my point is, iterate, iterate, iterate. Larry's been working at this. I know he's sharing stories about some of this over a year ago. And then see what you get. I just encourage you, run quick prompts, tell it more about yourself if you're not happy with results. For me, it came down to description of our company, what's our history, what's our strengths, what's our net promoter score in what areas, what's the capabilities of some of our areas of the business, what's the current challenges, what's the state of things now. And then based on that, you can tell by the way it starts giving you customized feedback that it understands how those things you're saying have implications. In the same way what Larry's showing you, you could see these different aspects of what's happening in different countries have implications, and it's doing all that summary for you that you can now interact directly. So I love this, Larry. It's incredible how thorough and powerful it really is. This looks like something I would read that would be published by some professional organization out there that makes recommendations like a think tank or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
that was actually the last prompt here, and that was my goal because that's what speaks to me. So I sit here based on our conversation, created 3,000 to 8,000 word essay as if it were written by a postgraduate social economics student arguing for this EU CPTPP Ukrainian partnership. And then, of course, end the essay by painting a clear picture of its benefits.
If we could, I just want to highlight that because I'm realizing now you have the prompt section because I didn't see it called out. You reference something specific, Prime Minister of Canada, list specific economic benefits, examples maybe, and I think it's really important for those doing prompts, give examples. It does help it, as well as the output. For the sake of argument, let's add Ukraine. That's great. Depending on the AI tool, doing things like making it bold, et cetera, highlights the importance of that over other things. So it can understand that, hey, here's 4 things, but this one's really the most important, et cetera. I like how you're interacting with it as a person. Do you agree? You can also say, debate both sides, do the pros and cons, which I like. And then that last one, this is how long I want it to be. You're saying as if it's written by, which is great. So it'll take on that tone, which I think it did a really good job. And then you say what you want to end it by. And honestly, based on what you shared, it looked like it really nailed it.
It did. It created quite a thesis. It actually put it in the thesis format, which I really wanted. And it broke it down with all this detail in it. And I read this, my mind just exploded because here, of course, the first 6 months of losing our US contract here, EU Inc. was very disappointed and a little bit concerned. But I thought, okay, fine, let's just push this out and let's see what this partnership that Carney suggested would really look like. I actually sent a copy of something similar to this to a group here in Europe called EU Made Simple because they were talking about this. I thought, you guys, I generated this with AI, but I think you got to read this.
I was listening to an interview with the CEO yesterday, and I would say this for everyone's sake who's in a leadership position. We are in an unprecedented level of change. I can comfortably say like no one's ever seen in their lifetime. I would even say over the Industrial Revolution. And the reason I'm saying that is every company is going to go through significant change. So this person in particular in the interview, the CEO, he was just calmly saying like, well, I know our company is not going to exist in 2 years. Now, the reason he's saying that is his company is an advisory company, essentially in the FinOps space where they make recommendations of hardware, software, and the cloud setup and all that. and he knows more and more. AI can give you that instantly. Why would someone call my company in when AI can give you that? Now, he's not freaked out, but it's your point. He's concerned, he's making changes. So what he's doing in that real term is we're using this right now. We're agentifying everything, where they're just going out and making recommendations around what we should do in these different markets. It's discovering markets. It's interacting with customers. I heard yesterday a person that's in the voice agent space where the voice agent is calling the customer to follow up on a lead that they have on the website, and it's interacting with them. And it was so real. This customer said, I love coffee. And the AI said, I do too. Here's my favorite place in that same city. And this customer's like, well, we should meet up for coffee then. It doesn't know it's interacting with an agent, but think of the power of that you can now be interacting with all of your customers real time. You can take all that data, synthesize it. You can do just what Larry did here, which is make recommendations. You could get real customer feedback and instant strategic pivots within days, within hours, depending on the size of your market. And that need to change is so important. The same CEO said, what we're doing now is we're reinvesting all these wins we're getting. They're not cutting staff, they're reinvesting. He said, and he just said this wonderfully calmly too. He said, yeah, so we're busy taking those wins and we're stealing market from our competitors. And he wasn't trying to make it a big deal. He's saying, no, legitimately, we are beating them and grabbing their customers and putting things out there, experimenting super fast. So for those who know that AI is changing and you don't have that strategy yet, you don't have that roadmap yet, you're not sure what the lead this change looks like, Larry's giving you a great example of just that. One, you're seeing the thoroughness of what it can do strategically as well, but also you can still summarize that. You can give it bullet points. I know someone that will take this type of information and say, turn it into a podcast, and they're listening to it on their way home. You don't have to sit there and go away to some 4-day boot camp on that. My encouragement is try something. He's put the prompts up here, play with them yourself. I gave you examples that I'll put up on the website as well. Don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. If you try to wait till you get enough information to feel confident about the next step, you'll have already missed it. It's just moving too fast. I don't know about you, Larry. I can't stay on top of all of it. I can get basic summaries, but there's new tools, there's new capabilities constantly. So it's more like pick your spot, but keep doing something. Don't feel like you need more information to start. Just start right away and start playing with it. Maybe on the weekend, maybe in the evenings, just to see what you get for that. So you don't feel like you're taking away from your work time. But if you're waiting for the time to jump in, it's already too late. I encourage you to jump in. And I wouldn't be so grave. I didn't act that way last year, but now I'm like, it's getting grave when I hear companies beating others. You can easily look at Apple. Apple's completely out of the race now. They didn't respond. It's too late. If you look at ChatGPT as an example, OpenAI was the clear leader over a year ago. I want to say 80+% of the market. That has been cut down from 1 user in 20 using Claude to now 1 in 6. And that's within a year. So it's moving so fast that even the big players are losing. Apple's losing, right? So if they're losing that fast, think of what's happening in your particular segment. Think about your competitors. You might have massive market share, but the problem that we've seen is if you have massive market share, you kind of get comfortable and all your people are kind of comfortable and they don't feel that sense of urgency. But I'll tell you who does feel that sense of urgency is your number 5 competitor. And I promise you, they don't stay number 5 if they're young and hungry and leveraging this. It won't be 1 to 3 years. It'll be 1 to 3 quarters, and you'll see your market shares losing. You'll wonder why customers aren't renewing their subscriptions, et cetera, or your phone's not ringing as much. And those are a lot of the companies we've worked with, Larry. They're getting good positions. They've been around for a long time. They're trying to try new ways of working. What they might have thought was a lot of change with Agile back then, you ain't seen nothing yet. This tidal wave of change is like way more than Agile. I was talking with another leader who's doing a great job in the space. And he said, yeah, if you don't already have that Agile mindset, he said, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble because you're not used to inspecting, adapting. You're not used to short feedback loops. You're not used to let me see instead of a report, right? I'm not looking at number of Copilot licenses. I'm looking for demonstrable work that people have done to show wins. But you don't even have those cycles going now if you're not doing Agile. You're not used to seeing real working value every 2 weeks. You're used to 3-month plans, 9-month plans, updates on status. We're 33% done. And so you'll get that for a while because your people don't know either. They're going to say, yeah, I'm using it because they hop over and treat it like another Google. But they're not doing things like what Larry's doing. And you're not seeing timelines shrink. If you're not already seeing these loops of delivery shrink, then you clearly see that you're not working because Larry's done what is weeks or months of research and he does it. I don't know. How long did this all take you, Larry?
This took me about 4 hours.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's incredible, right? So just encourage everyone, if you have questions, reach out. Again, look at our site for the prompts. Look at our site for the series of the other videos that we're putting out there. It's on YouTube, but you can find the links on our website. And take a look at those intro classes that Larry and I do, or maybe on the dev side, what does that look like with Paul? and always we can customize things, but hop on the phone and have a
Yes.
conversation, because we can tell you stories and give you examples that might actually get you going right away. And then
Yes.
you get the lay of the land to come back and see what you actually need and tailor that. But just encourage you, jump right in. Larry, thank you for the time. I'm excited to see the feedback from everyone. If you have any thoughts, comments, leave them below. Happy to engage with you, and we'll see you on the next session.